Hey, Brinton, are you ready over there?
I'm waiting. I mean, Jay just said we're taking her away from her business, so.
No, I'm ready. I do need to do it. Sorry.
Ready?
Yep.
The words have gotten all distorted. What they meant to say was not reported. Before the torches come to town, we gonna burn this fort down.
Welcome back, FORTitudeers. My name is JW Wilson, and to my right is obviously the handsomest fella in Fort Worth, one Brinton Payne.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Brinton.
Thank you.
Today's show is a good one. Before we get to this special guest, I was digging around in Jay Fitzgerald's office just the other day and looking for some audio equipment, and I found these neatly tucked away beside his computer. Do you have any idea what was responsible for this?
Well, all I know is one time I tried to eat a cookie in his office. He came in out of nowhere and said, "Do not open them," because he likes to bring the fresh, I guess, sealed bag home.
Jay, the company's on to you now. We know where the cookies have been
Look at him over
disappearing
there.
to.
I wish we had a camera for that.
I know. We'll get to that more later on. Also, this week we had a very sad death. Not to change topics really quickly, but Eddie Robinson, he was the oldest living Major League Baseball player, retired at the time, but he passed away this week. Brinton, are you familiar with Eddie Robinson?
Vaguely.
Well, Eddie, he died this past Monday. He was born December 15th, 1920. That's quite a few years ago, right? One of the cool things about Eddie is he spent 60 years as a player, an exec, a coach, and a scout in the game of baseball. He was in and around Fort Worth. He died, I believe, in his ranch in just outside of Austin, I believe, Bastrop maybe. One of the cool things about Eddie, in 1948, when Babe Ruth, do you know who Babe Ruth is?
I do.
Okay. Who was Babe Ruth?
Was it another baseball player?
Great, nailed it. When Babe Ruth walked to the home plate for his retirement, his ceremonial retirement, there's a very famous photo of him leaning on a bat. The picture that was taken of him retiring, he won the Pulitzer Prize that year. That bat was given to him in the dugout by Eddie Robinson, which is really a cool tie-in.
Yeah.
But he was a really great dude, really well respected in Fort Worth. People love this guy. So
I'm going to ask you about musicians or something sometime, and I'm going to just put you out there like you do with me every time.
I await your challenge. Okay, getting on past that. If you guys care about this show, there's a few of you, our moms, we know you do too. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at FORTitude FW. So please check us out. Tell us how ridiculous we are. Ask Brinton some hard sports questions like, who is Michael Jordan? That might really stump him this time. But look for us and contact us at FORTitudeFWpodcast@gmail.com. And our website is FORTitudeFW.com. So that out all the way, we can get on to our guest today. And we have a good one. Today's guest is the greatness of one Jessi Sheldon. Welcome to the show, Jessi.
Thank you so much for having
Yes.
I have my own sound effects.
Yes, of course.
Before you started in too heavily, the mayor sat in the seat where you were last week, and she is currently in COVID quarantine.
Perfect.
If you need a little bit of this, just let us know. Brinton's already sprayed my mouth and my drink, so I'm tasting it the whole show.
It's like my Banaka.
Great. Absolutely.
So again, welcome to the show, Jessi. We're honored to have you. Your story is fantastic. We look forward to talking about it with you. First off, you were born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, correct?
That's correct.
High school?
I would have gone to Jinx High School.
Yes,
Jinx.
I know
Yep.
guys from there.
They're known for some things. One thing in particular, football.
Yes.
Are
And
they known,
baseball, right? They got
Yeah,
good
pretty much
baseball.
all sports.
Yeah.
Really, it's
are they known for soccer?
Yeah, it's a good program there. Yeah.
When did you realize you were a soccer player of substantial talent?
Probably when I stopped growing and I couldn't really do basketball as well.
Right.
No, I mean, I started playing soccer a little bit later than a lot of people do. I was almost 8, which doesn't sound like so old, but yeah, most kids start playing soccer when they're like 3, 4.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, so I was 8 and played a couple of years of rec soccer and then kind of started up early on with some competitive soccer and just kind of went from there.
They have select teams then?
Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you ended up moving to the Metroplex, Colleyville specifically, where you attended Colleyville Heritage High School. There, your soccer prowess was so much so that you won the school's first team state championship, correct?
Yes, that was in 1999.
1999. Very good.
Did you guys party like it was 1999 after you won?
You know we did.
Yeah. Tell us, how did we celebrate this victory, this championship?
I mean, it was a really, really fun team to be a part of. We went undefeated, and I don't even remember how many, but we gave up no goals during playoffs. Like, it was a very, very good team. But more than anything, we just really enjoyed each other. We had so much fun, and probably on paper, we weren't the best team that there ever was, but we really just played for each other. It was a family, and yeah, it's just one of my favorite experiences.
Very cool. And as this is the one sport my partner does know a little bit about, soccer, so we're going down the right path with this interview. So from there, you had some offers to play in college. You ended up going to Mississippi State, and then ultimately transferred to TCU, where you became part of the Fort Worth crowd, so to speak. Tell us about your time at TCU, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, like you said, I started out at Mississippi State and loved my soccer experience there. But I was really kind of looking to get into film, and there weren't a lot of film opportunities in Starkville, or Stark Vegas, as we like to call it. So I went ahead and looked. I was looking at different schools and different programs, and I'd gotten some interest from TCU in high school, but I hadn't really decided that was like a film thing that I wanted to do or anything like that. I was just kind of like, I'm going to go play soccer, going to go do this. And then eventually, after, you're 19, 20, you're like, okay, I'm going to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, not just like focus on the sport. And so I started kind of calling around, and my coach at Mississippi State was really great. And he's like, I'll call any program. I'll give you your release. I know this is something that you want to do and you want to pursue. So I called up TCU. I knew that they had a really great film program, and came and visited the film program first, and really enjoyed it and really liked it. And then talked with the soccer program, and yeah, we made it work to where I could transfer in.
Coach Rubinson?
Yep.
Very good.
What year was that? Junior year?
Yeah, so it was my junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you become a radio, TV, film major. Was it the Bob Schieffer School at the time, or was that prior to being named that?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a college of communication then, and I think now it's like film, TV, digital media, or something like that. But yeah, it was radio, TV, film at the time.
And you discovered that you loved this industry. What made you become a lover of the film, TV industry?
I mean, I always just really enjoyed just watching movies, watching shows, just the passion, and even more that I realized, like, at first I was like, okay, well, maybe I want to do in front of the camera and kind of be interested in that. And then the more I started just doing stuff like we do a lot of student films together. And once we got on campus, and I just really kind of met this great group of people that would just hang out on weekends and making movies. And it's like, oh, I really enjoyed behind the scenes. Yeah. And like that, it was really something different, and something that, you just don't really know, you're not really as exposed to as much. That hadn't been my world. I had just been pretty much sports and school, and that's what it was. And I never really went to, any acting camps, or definitely no kind of filmmaking, anything like that. And it's, things are different now. Everybody can go and shoot a movie with their iPhone now. And it just really wasn't the case back when I was
wanted to be a film star like my partner here, be on camera all the time. That?
Not too much. I've dabbled a little bit with little things here and there, but yeah, definitely prefer behind the camera.
What was your favorite show at that time, or movie? Like, what were some that, like, right around that time when you came here, you kind of knew you wanted to do it, that inspired you?
That's always a great question. I really I just watched movies over and over again whenever I was at Mississippi State. I remember just like kind of, it sounds crazy, but just like kind of locking myself in the room and just trying to watch a bunch of, different classics, and anything from like, Mean Streets to, stuff in the 70s, 80s, to just different genres. And I pretty much liked all the genres. I did not care for horror movies, but other than that.
Who does? Like, I don't understand where that evil, they get that, like the ideas for that,
No.
It's crazy to me, the stuff
Have they met you?
Well, no, but I mean, as dark as I am, like, I would not, like, that stuff is,
no doubt.
It's crazy how they make, and then to raise money and to actually be able to put it out and stuff.
I know.
There's clearly an audience out there that's really into it.
Yeah, it just wasn't for me. But yeah, I really got into like improv comedies like Best in Show and that kind of stuff came out when I was in college, and I just really got
Was
into
this
it.
like a Blockbuster thing though? Were you renting it? Like, because there's no streaming, right? Like at this time or anything?
No, so it was when I was at Mississippi State. It wasn't even Blockbuster because in Starkville we did not even have Blockbuster.
Like
so
it
was like the little,
movie store?
exactly.
Yeah.
But then by the time I transferred to TCU, like Netflix was just kind of coming out, but it was with like the envelopes and the mail and that kind of thing. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to get this. And and then Blockbuster didn't really think that was anything, and I kind of missed out.
Yeah.
So you get your degree from the Bob Schieffer School, and you go to work for a company called Sports Studio.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted. What were you doing for Sports Studio?
So I basically moved out to LA right after I graduated college. So I was in summer school, finished on a Friday, packed up my car and drove it out on Sunday, kind of thing. No job, no apartment, no nothing. Just figure it out, you know?
I'm envisioning Axl Rose getting off that bus and Welcome to the Jungle video.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
Pretty much. Yeah. Except, it was just a dumb 22-year-old kid in a Mustang just driving across the 10.
No plan? Just like, I'm going to get into this. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I figured that I would, kind of figure something out. We had, again, with like our RTVF program, we had a lot of different friends and students and stuff that were getting ready to move out. And we were all just like, okay, well, I'll room with you, I'll room with this. And so I started out on a couch and knew that we'd find an apartment and figure it out. And wow. Looking back now, I'm like, what was I thinking? But yeah, that's what you do. And so just kind of, took that leap of faith. And so before I started Sports Studio, I did all the usual things. I mean, I did extra work on TV shows, and I poured coffee at Starbucks. I worked in a restaurant. I was a server. I worked in the post-production accounting department for Fox, where basically I just called people asking for W-9s all the time, which was just terrible.
Like all day. That was the job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you have a headset, or it was actually like?
No, you just actually had to call.
Gosh.
And they faxed them in, and so did that, and then I coached a little bit of high school soccer at a private school.
Nice.
Oh, that's good.
And then eventually, no joke, I answered an ad on Craigslist for an internship at Sports Studio, and started working with a guy named Mark Ellis, and started as an intern, and just kind of at like about 10 hours a week, and then realized this was something I just absolutely had to do. And I remember calling my parents. I'm like, okay, like I may need help because I need to quit everything and just throw myself into this. And I didn't even know something like this existed. Like, this is the coolest thing.
That's
ever.
what I've done with our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it was a good decision.
Thank you.
Continue on, please.
So I started with Sports Studio, and just like a few commercials here and there, and just kind of starting out. And then my first big feature film that I did behind the scenes was The Tooth Fairy.
Oh, wow. What a small start for you.
Yes. with the Rock.
Only watched that like 5 times with my kids back in the day.
Mm-hmm. This is with Sports Studio, correct? Okay.
Yeah. So that was in Vancouver.
So how come it's called Sports Studio? I mean, because you were getting like former athlete. I mean, or it's just the name? It didn't really have anything to do with.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a name. Is the idea that it's just specifically focusing on sports movies.
Yeah. So what did you do on that film?
So what I do and what our company does in general, which is no longer Sports Studios now, Game Changing Films, but we'll get to that. But we cast and choreograph the action for sports movies. So say for that example, for a hockey movie, we come in, we break down the script, see how many plays there are, see how many games there are. Then we hold a casting call where we find real hockey players that, we don't fake it. We find real hockey players. We also train the actors. So, it was finding a local coach that can train the Rock to skate. And
oh, wow.
How did that go? Like, that's got to be a difficult endeavor.
Yeah, he wasn't too interested in really trying to learn how to skate. I think he went out there and kind of fell on his butt one time, and he's like, yeah, this isn't going to work.
Like in a serious way? Like not so much like all kidding aside?
It was kind of like one of those where he was laughing, but it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, we need to figure something else out. Yeah.
So in that case, you have to pull in a stunt double to do the actual skating sequences for him?
Yeah, so we had 2 doubles for him. We did a little bit of face replacement. That was whenever it was just kind of starting out. And then we also built this rig that would go on the ice, and he would sit there with his stick and just go back.
Kind of like the
forth,
car
back and
behind
forth.
the, like
Yeah,
when they're driving, like the same
exactly.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
Was
It was
that
on
the
ice.
first rig of its kind? Was that?
Probably on ice, at least for sure, because
Yeah.
you just had like grips that knew how to skate. And we were again filming in Canada, so pretty much all the
Everyone.
crew knew how to skate and all that stuff. So you had a bunch of grips that were just they'd get a running start and just take off with the.
We talked to somebody before, Amanda, one of our guests, and she said the reason she loved like the movie stuff was because you just did stuff just like that. Like it's like, we need it. So we're not going to go and like Google search to go find, like we're going to actually build it and just do it. Is that kind of been a thing for you too? Like,
Yeah.
that's the way it just like spontaneously just comes about.
It's one of my favorite things about filmmaking is that it's all problem solving. It's just and coming up with the most random things. I was talking actually with we're filming a movie here in Fort Worth right now, and I was talking with Rob Corddry, who's on it, and he was talking about that, how he's like I've met so many crew members that have just come up with amazing stuff, and then they've like gone out and marketed it to the world of just like, and it just has found a place just in other people, in other lives, and what everybody else is doing, and it's not just a
Hold
filmmaking
that thought
thing.
though. We're gonna get there. So 4 years at Sports Studio, then you're in love. You've learned the business backwards and forwards. What happens next in that sequence?
So then I had been working with a woman named Amy McDaniel for a long time during that time. And we felt like we could maybe just try to venture out and start our own thing. And so Amy played basketball at Pepperdine. And so she had been working with Mark and with Sports Studio for a long time. She had started out on Miracle. And
Another
did
small
that.
start.
Yes. The hockey movies, it worked out well.
Oh, for sure.
So
Was she Canadian?
she was not. No.
Yeah.
No. So we launched Game Changing Films. Is one of those where it's like, all right, we decided to do this and just locked ourselves in a room and just said, okay, what are we going to do? Let's come up with a title. And we just came up with a name of the company, and we walked out, and then we asked a couple of our fellow crew members that were working with us at the time, including my future husband, was not my husband at the time, Mike Sheldon. And I said, we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to leave Sports Studio and we're going to start this company, Game Changing Films. Like, you guys in? They're like, all right, okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, great. Let's hit up happy hour and let's come up with a plan. And so yeah, kind of the rest is history.
Were there any issues at Sports Studio that were leading all these people, including your husband, to want to leave? Because that's obviously a step out for some of these folks.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think there were some differences in kind of with management issues and stuff like that. And we decided that we were kind of going in a different direction.
Sure.
And
Yeah, you were kind of doing a niche out from there because they were doing like the whole films, right? And you guys were like, no, we're doing this part. Like, we're good at this part,
yeah,
right?
I mean, they were doing, Sports Studio also did like a bunch of wardrobe and uniforms and stuff like that. And we just decided that we were kind of thinking things in a different way and just honestly felt like we could do it better and more efficiently. And then eventually, a few years later, we actually started doing uniforms and equipment as well.
What in a typical film is like the number, like, is there an average number of choreographed, like sports choreographed scenes?
So it totally depends. Like, we'll call them, each individual plays. And so we will choreograph a play. I would say like in Uncle Drew, for example, we had probably about 25 choreographed plays.
Uh-huh.
Whereas I think probably in Miracle, it was probably closer to like 65.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's obviously a very heavy sports movie, whereas Uncle Drew was like a little bit more of a comedy and a lot more. We knew a lot more stuff would be improvised and we could do a lot more what we call free play with, guys like Kyrie and Shaq and stuff.
So when those guys when you're working with them, do you have to go and kind of prep them for the scene beforehand? Like go work a day with them and then you'll actually shoot the scene and then you'll go on to the next one, that kind of thing? Is that what?
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of times we'll do like an actual training camp. And so we'll bring the players and the athletes in and we'll rehearse all the plays and choreograph everything. So then once we get into filming, we're ready to go. It's like, all right, guys, this is game 3, play 2. You remember this one? This is the toss sweep, out to the left. And everybody knows what it
So
is.
the pivotal moments in the movie, the game-winning goal or the game when it ends against the Russian team, that you guys are choreographing and filming that particular piece?
Yeah. So yeah, all of
That's
that has
amazing.
been choreographed and everything has been, figured out exactly, what to do. And, sometimes crazy things happen and you do get lucky and just something nuts happens, especially hockey is so hard to do a deflection, for example, or, something like that. Like that's so specific. And so sometimes
Right.
you do kind of just have to kind of go with it and just go with the free play, but there's always a blueprint there and to kind of,
Is there a ballpark period of time for each of these moments you're filming? Is it weeks, days, months for each one? You did say you did 60-ish, right?
Yeah. So, it depends. Obviously, it depends on the budget of the movie. It depends on how many days they kind of have budgeted to shoot the action. In general, depending on the sport, you can usually get about 3 to 4 plays of action a day, especially like for football or something like that.
Yeah.
And then again, it also depends on how much crowd reaction there are. If there's a bunch of actors in the stands and on the sidelines and, all of that stuff, then you also have to include that with each play is
You
depending
don't
on what it
choreograph that though, too, do you?
It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Especially like the sidelines, we usually do help with that, choreography and teaching the coach or coaches or trainers or whomever is on the sidelines. Like, okay, this is where you would be standing. This, a lot of times we're also helping them with dialogue. This is, kind of filler of what you would be saying in this moment. And
Yeah.
This is, this kind of, because usually in a script, it's like, okay, and then the winning team scores a touchdown. And sometimes that's all it says.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is trying to figure out, okay, well, what is that exactly? What play is that? Is that going to be, a slant across the middle? Is
Right.
it going to be, in basketball, is it going to be an alley-oop? Is it, how are you doing that? And so.
So you start game-changing films. What's the first project?
I think we were still doing a TV show called Necessary Roughness. It
Okay.
was on USA Network and it was very sports based. And so we had done the first 2 seasons kind of under the sports studio umbrella. And then season 3 we did with Game Changing Films. And that one was really fun because we were able to do a bunch of different sports that season. And so we ended up doing like women's tennis and track and boxing and baseball and basketball. And we did pretty much football. Obviously football, the football was a big part of the show. And
Right.
so it was really good to kind of try to figure out, okay, this casting side of it is we not only just kind of venturing out just kind of mainly from like the major sports, but then
Right.
we were also able to kind of build our a little bit more experience with the other sports.
Things are taking off quickly for you guys, it sounds like.
Yes.
What happens to Sports Studio?
Well,
Fair question.
Yeah. So just recently, in about 3 or 4 months ago, Sports Studio became no longer, and we were contacted by the former owner, really, that it kind of defaulted back to, and asked if we wanted to purchase their inventory. Like I said, I mentioned that we had started a uniform and gear company as well, and Game Changing Gear, and so they asked if we wanted to go ahead and purchase their inventory, which included a huge warehouse of about 20,000 square feet full of uniforms and equipment in California. We sure did.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
So yes. So
Did you get a good deal?
We did. So yes, it was, we are still, as we're saying, like, building the plane while we fly it.
Yeah.
And,
But
kind
that's
of
got to be
figuring that,
like a fuselage in that kind of,
Yes.
build.
It was a very, very quick transaction, and we had to basically get all the stuff packed up and moved out in a new warehouse in about a week. And so we had just called up a bunch of our athletes that had just wrapped on season 3 of All American, and they had wrapped that Friday before. And I texted all of them. I said, guys, I need you to show up on Monday morning, wear your athletic clothes, bring some water, and let's get after it.
It's out in LA. Like it was, so you had one warehouse to another warehouse in LA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One day we'd like to come look through that. I'm sure we can find
for sure.
a captain outfit for this guy.
Yes.
So you see some of the films you've been involved with, obviously some before, some current, some after. These are things you've been very involved with on the sports side of it. What exactly how would you describe Game Changing Films' role? Is there a mission statement of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's to cast and coordinate, sports action, TV, movies, commercials, and we try to make it authentic as possible. That's a big thing, is authentic as well as, safe, keeping all the athletes and actors safe, and but making sure that the director's vision is coming to life, and
What do you lend to on authenticity with something like The Dark Knight?
Well, so it was Dark Knight Rises. So we did the scene where Bane blows up the field.
Bane, that's the name, Jay. I was thinking I couldn't think of the bad guy's name. I only knew the mask thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bane blows up Heinz Field. And so for that particular scene, it was pretty freaking amazing. We had cast all the players and everybody, and then we had rehearsed the day before. And on that day too, on the filming day, you had like some of the actual real Steelers came in, and we had Heinz Ward out there was returning the kick, and we had a double for him as well. And it basically we rehearsed it, and I mean, you have things literally falling down and jumping into holes and all that stuff. I mean, obviously they did a lot of stuff with CGI as well, but it was, and then they came to us. This is always one where you're like, you just kind of go with it. You're like, okay. They came to us, we'd rehearsed everything. And on the filming day, they came to us and said, hey, so the mayor wants to do the kickoff. And we said, I'm sorry, what? They're like, yeah, no, like the mayor of Pittsburgh, he wants to do the kick.
Like he's in the football outfit, like doing the kick?
Like, and I don't know if you know, but like kickoffs aren't easy.
Right.
And it's a very...
Well, relatively speaking. Yes, I'm kidding.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
It's a very specific thing. And it's only one play. It's a kickoff. That's it. So we're like, well, could he just do like the national anthem? Like we have that piece, right?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be a good
sing
thing?
it? Yeah.
But they're like, no. He really wants to do the kick. Like, he kicked a little bit. We're like, okay. Thankfully, he really did kick a lot. He kicked in college, and he did a great job. But that's one of those where you're like, okay, well, that's what Christopher Nolan has said, and there you go.
Let me get this straight. In The Dark Knight Rises, the mayor of Pittsburgh is kicking the kickoff.
100%.
That's great.
That is unbelievable. Yeah.
Choreographed by these guys, probably taught, Yeah.
Is that a known fact and a fact?
I don't know if it's all that well known or not. I don't know.
You pulled it off apparently, so good job. But none of the stadium or the field is actually getting destroyed. I know you didn't blow it up, but are you digging holes in the turf, or is any of that stuff happening? Is that all CGI?
No, I mean, there were like some holes and stuff in there. Like it was...
Just where they were when they were filming kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so because the guys had to have somewhere, like the football players and stunt guys have to go somewhere to fall.
Oh, yeah.
What are you doing during all this that's happening at the stadium? Where are you?
So I was standing at the end of the end zone, just hoping and praying that one, we didn't fumble the kickoff, that we didn't muff it. And, just making sure that
Heinz
everybody
Ward doesn't drop the ball ever, does he?
He doesn't, but it's in a way it's a little bit different. Like but the good news is, and that's I also think why athletes do so well in sports movies. Like they're used to pressure. They're used to that. They're used to everybody looking at them that, it's their time to shine. And so they can do pretty well with that. So enough, obviously he did well with it.
Do you ever have an athlete though, where you're like, he's not going to, or she's not going to get here? Like, I mean, we're working with it and we're trying to get you to this place, but it's just not happening.
As far as athletes, it's more on like the side of the acting thing. Yeah. Where you're just like, oh, you are really stiff and you are trying, but oh man, this is not good.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's a lot of actors that are not athletes.
Oh yeah. So you can see that probably almost immediately in Showing Up, right?
Yes.
Just the way they move.
Just the way they walk. You can tell
for sure
right away. How they carry themselves is just...
I noticed that with JW right off the bat when I first met him.
I knew there was an angle there somewhere.
Who
are some of your favorite celebrities, actors that you've come across during your time that you really like?
That's a good question. I would say, I mean, honestly, Dwayne was amazing, and he is amazing. Like there's a reason that he is who he is. Like he is just, his personality is so great. He's game for whatever. I didn't work on this movie, it was before my time, but a movie called Game Plan. And in it, when they were prepping, he tore his Achilles. Ooh. And that was in just a routine play, like just, he was in rehearsal, like they were just kind of like warming up basically. And he just rolled out and it popped.
Oh, wow.
And so they had to shut down production for 6 weeks. And then, he went and rehabbed a little bit and then brought it back, or maybe it was 6 months. I don't even know. It was a long time. And then they started back up. And then obviously he was not doing as much as the action as they had anticipated.
Right.
So again, you just kind of have to roll with the punches and go with it. But Dwayne's great. Tooth Fairy was my first one, and then we did Ballers, and By the time we were doing Ballers, though, he was big time then. He was really Dwayne, and he had his hand kind of in everything.
Demeanor changing from Tooth Fairy to Ballers?
Not his demeanor. He was still just fun and all that stuff, but he was definitely busier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he remember like you guys? Do you kind of remember, like, is there a familiarity? Like,
a little bit
from the last set kind of thing?
Yeah. And then
makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. And then, same idea with like Adam Sandler. Like, he is legitimately a good athlete. Like, he's a really good basketball player.
Yeah.
And he takes his job very seriously. All the comedies he takes seriously. And it's one of the things that's really, I enjoy about him. But he also just enjoys just having fun with his friends too. And
it's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that with another comedian like he's been for his whole career, but he does take it very serious.
He takes it very seriously. Yeah. And he'll kind of snap at the guys. Like, I did Grown Ups with him. And, when the guys were kind of
playing the basketball game and stuff.
And so whenever they were kind of going off the rails a little bit, he'd kind of snap back at him. And so he was like a team leader, really.
Oh yeah. That's good.
So Game Changing Films is in season 4 of All American as we sit. So what's going on right now? Are you guys filming right now? Are you guys
yes.
Where do you sit right now with that?
We are. So we are filming All American in Los Angeles right now. We are just about to start on episode 406. And I think it starts airing in about a week.
Okay.
Maybe 10 days, I think on the 25th. And so this show has been really, really great. We were there from the pilot, so from the very, very beginning. And, I remember seeing the players and the actors just kind of walking up for the first time and us meeting them. And, Daniel, the lead who plays the main guy, Spencer, he's British and had never played football before, but is athletic overall. But the difference between him from when we met him on the pilot versus now is it's night and day. I mean, he has worked so hard on training and trying to get better and all that. And so it's really like this show has really become a family. Like we really genuinely enjoy the actors. We enjoy the crew, and it's been pretty much the same crew from the beginning. And so it's a good one. And we're now actually doing the spinoff as well, All American Homecoming.
Right.
So, and so that kind of features some baseball and tennis. And so it's fun and female tennis. And so it's fun to work with some female athletes now too. So
that's incredible. What's the hardest part of your job doing these things?
I would probably the hours. It's a lot of work, long hours, very short turnaround when we're on a job. My husband and I, we have 2 small kids. And so when we're like really filming on a job and stuff, it's almost like we just kind of have to have the kids away because we never see them. We're gone before they wake up and we're home after they're asleep. And so that's probably like the toughest thing about the industry and about the business. And actually it should be interesting. There's a possible strike happening within the film industry.
Oh, wow.
Kind of based on that idea that just the hours are so crazy. But at the end of the day too, we still get to make movies and shows, and it's a lot of hard work, but it is a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
What does Mr. Sheldon do for a living?
He also works with Game Changing Films.
Okay. So you told me that he came along with you guys.
Yeah.
Right.
So he, so he's a coordinator. So he's more on the field or on the court, kind of really specifically working with camera and making sure that the choreography is correct. And
is he good at what he does?
He's very good at what he does. Yeah.
Would it be safe to say you're his boss?
Yes, I would say on paper, yes, I'm his boss.
Outstanding. Currently, you're in town. You live in LA, though, correct?
I live in Austin, and and we have an apartment in LA too.
LA, okay. Currently, you're working on a film called The Senior. We're filming it right now. Tell us about that, please.
So it's based on a true story about a 59-year-old football player that had played in the 70s and then went back to his alma mater. He had 1 year of eligibility left, and so he went back at 59 years old to play linebacker at Sul Ross State. And
is this a true story?
It's a true story.
Because we knew remember the Texas Wesleyan guy, same thing.
Brinton's getting some ideas, so Jessi, be careful over here.
Yeah. So Michael Chiklis from The Shield and Fantastic Four is playing Mike Flint is the character name, and so it's been one of those where this story has been around Hollywood for years. I remember we broke down the script, I think maybe like in 2013, 14, something like that. And so that was when we first thought it was it's been various different actors attached, and finally it's finally making its way. And so it's a good one. And Mark Chiardi, who is a big time sports producer, he did Miracle and The Rookie and all that. And he's one of the producers on that.
Are you doing the entire movie or just the sports scenes from the movie?
So just the sports. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the football specific.
Uniforms too? Do you get to use that big warehouse full of stuff?
We sure do. Yep.
Very good.
So yeah, we made custom uniforms for the old 70s stuff. And then for a lot of the opponents, we just add stuff from our warehouse. And
if you need a couple washed out old dudes to, stand in for, to hold up somebody else, we're here for you.
Yeah, the click thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
The click thing.
The click thing.
Very good. What's the best day in filming you've had? Do you have any really amazing stories? Do you have any crazy stories that have happened to you?
One of my favorites, and it was such like a little thing, and it's a movie that hardly anybody, probably not a lot of people saw, but it's called McFarlane USA. Yeah. And Kevin Costner is in it. And
wait, is that the one with the kids with running?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I saw
Cross
that.
Country,
I saw that at the movie theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
it was a good movie.
Yeah. That was one where we had been training with those kids, like actually running with them for like 6 weeks. And so they were like our little brothers and that kind of thing. And on the first day of set, and we had heard maybe that Costner was difficult. And so we didn't really know what to expect. So on the first day of set, we're sitting there, and it was like just kind of a non-action scene. Like they were doing like a little weightlifting or something. And Kevin's there, and he's, filming the scene with them. And one of the kids, a 16-year-old, like one of the youngest ones, stepped on one of his lines, which, you don't do. And
what's that mean? Did you mess up your line?
No. So like when Kevin had a line, he basically spoke over him.
Oh, like I do the whole show, like I've been doing you?
Exactly.
Okay,
yes.
You don't do this in the movies. Okay.
It's frowned upon a little bit to Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was one of those where everybody kind of like held their breath for a second. It's like, oh. And Kevin just kind of took him aside and said, he's like, hey, remember, he's like, you have to wait until I ask you the question, before you answer. And he's like, oh yeah, yes, sir. He's like, yeah, no, we got this. We'll be fine. And it was like right then he took on that kind of like coach role, and, and he's an athlete himself. Like he was a baseball player. And so it was like, oh, this is going to be great. Like this is really, this is gonna be nice. And so by the end of the movie, it's like they all have to run up, I don't know,
that
big
hill.
Spoilers. Yeah. But they have to run up that big hill.
Yeah.
And we had one of the main actors who's a little bit bigger. And
why did you look at me directly when you said that?
Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I was hoping you didn't notice.
It's okay. We have editing somewhere on this floor.
So the guy has to make it up the big hill, and it was one of those where it's like, I didn't know if he did, and he freaking did it, and we all, like the whole crew, lost it. Like everybody was just cheering and going nuts, and Kevin was going nuts at monitor, and just it was like same thing. It's like that family atmosphere and something special to be part of it.
That's awesome.
So Costner is a good-looking human, and he's a nice guy. Who would have thought?
Well, on some sets, I wouldn't.
Yeah, for sure.
There's probably moments on all sets that are not like that.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that's happened to you in this business?
That's a good one.
Is it right now? I mean, by the way, what do you make of our set? Since you're involved in sets, does this set really stand out to you in any special way?
I like it. I think it has some potential. It's not a full blown, studio budget, but we're getting there, It's like maybe like a mid-major.
We have a small warehouse ourselves right behind here
with uniforms. Call it our closet, but yes, we have uniforms too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you got a very cool story.
For sure.
Thank you for sharing with us. Anything else? How can people find you guys?
So we are on the normal social medias. Yeah, we've got Instagram and Facebook at Game Changing Films, and then Twitter at Game Changing FLM, because you couldn't go the whole way with Game Changing Films on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And then our website, you can actually create a free profile if you're interested in being an athlete in some of our movies.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can create a free free profile on there,
All right.
gamechangingfilms.com. And we post casting calls on there all the time. And
So Brinton could literally sign up for to be in a movie, probably not a sports movie, but potentially that's what you do. But
does it help if we know you? Like, could I just in my description say, and yes, we did meet you, and
yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's all about who you know, right? It's Hollywood.
Sure.
We saved a little surprise for you. This little gym we found online. Do you remember these days?
Oh yeah. It was a couple kids ago.
Right.
Yeah. So that was that was back
was
in
that
LA.
Mississippi? When was? Or was that like
that was
after?
in LA? Yeah, it was a little like promotional model shoot thing. Yep.
What position were you in soccer?
I was a forward.
Forward, very good. Okay, well, we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Last question for us. We always ask our guests, what's the best day of your whole life aside familial affairs, husband, kids? What's the best day of your whole life?
I would say one of the coolest things, and this is also in our film world, was we did the movie Safety, and we filmed at the halftime of a Clemson football game. And so we had our guys, we had been rehearsing, and we had rehearsed the week before, but you never are really sure what's going to happen. And we thought, it was a blowout game. Like Clemson was already winning by like 4 touchdowns at halftime against Charlotte, I think. And so we're like, okay, well, everybody's going to leave at halftime. Like we have 8 minutes to do everything that we need to do. And everybody stayed and they went nuts. We had our team like all up at the top of the hill, and seeing our guys like run down the hill at halftime of players that we had cast, and then come onto the field. And we had like 9 cameras out there to capture all the action. And we just knocked it out in like that 8 minutes. And it was just cool. It was
like recreated, like you actually created that energy kind of thing.
And I mean, there were 80,000 screaming fans. Like that's because, most movies that we do, it's like, all right, you've got like 250 extras at most, and then they just repopulate it with CGI. But so I've never experienced anything like that, like where there's so many screaming fans. You couldn't hear anything.
You've done some great projects and great films, and we wish you well on
movie
the
magic.
senior. It is. Very nice to meet you. You're a very lovely person. So thank you.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Jessi Sheldon.
All right. Thank you.